Chosen one, listen closely, because what is happening around you right now is not random noise, it is not coincidence, and it is not imagination. The sudden attention, the whispers, the sideways glances, the way your name is moving through rooms you've never stepped into, this is not gossip. This is announcement. Allah does not make someone the talk of the town unless he is about to expose truth, collapse false structures, and elevate his servant in a way that can no longer be hidden. Something is going down, and deep down, everyone can feel it. Those who doubted you feel uneasy. Those who used you feel nervous. Those who underestimated you are suddenly watching carefully. This is your lookout moment, the phase where Allah lifts you high enough to see clearly who was real, who was fake, and who was only comfortable with you when you were unseen. So don't rush, don't react, and don't explain yourself. Stay present, stay grounded, and stay aligned, because when Allah makes you the conversation, it's because your story is no longer private, and what comes next will change everything. Chosen one, understand this truth with depth and certainty. Allah only makes you the talk of the town when the truth about you has grown too heavy to be buried any longer, because lies require constant maintenance, alliances, and silence. But truth stands on its own and eventually demands daylight. And when Allah decides that moment has arrived, He does not ask permission from people. He simply lifts the veil, causing conversations to shift, narratives to collapse, and hidden realities to surface all at once, which is why those who once ignored you are now mentioning your name, those who doubted you are suddenly explaining themselves, and those who tried to rewrite your story are growing uncomfortable, because what is being exposed is not just who you are, but who they were pretending to be around you. And Allah allows this public turning point so the record is corrected without you defending yourself, because your consistency, patience, and sincerity became evidence stronger than any argument. And this is why the talk surrounding you feels charged, emotional, and unstable. Because people are not reacting to you anymore. They are reacting to the realization that they misjudged someone. Allah was protecting all along, and when Allah makes you the subject of discussion, it is not to inflate your ego but to establish truth, restore balance, and show that no amount of manipulation, delay, or denial can override what He has written. Because when Allah elevates truth, even those who hate it are forced to acknowledge it, and that is when your name moves without your effort, your presence is felt without your appearance, and your journey becomes undeniable proof that what Allah protects will always rise quietly at first, and then unmistakably for all to see. Chosen one, what you are witnessing right now is not chaos, coincidence, or sudden misfortune. It is Allah deliberately closing an old era that was built on imbalance, false authority, hidden injustice, and borrowed power. Because Allah allows systems, relationships, and structures to exist only as long as they serve a purpose in the test of this world, and when they begin to rot from arrogance, corruption, and denial of truth, He removes His permission for them to stand, causing everything to unravel at once in ways that confuse those who relied on them while bringing quiet clarity to the one who already outgrew them. And this is why things seem to be going down rapidly, with people panicking, alliances breaking, and masks slipping, because an era that depended on secrecy cannot survive exposure, and Allah does not demolish gently when the lesson must be undeniable. Yet notice how your heart remains steady while the environment shakes, because Allah detached you before He dismantled what was around you, preparing you not to fall with it, but to witness it, learn from it, and move forward wiser. Since the end of an era is never punishment for the righteous, but relief, separation, and transition, and Allah is showing you through this collapse that what once had power over you no longer does, what once limited you has expired, and what once seemed permanent was only temporary by divine allowance, because when Allah closes a chapter, He does so completely, so you are not tempted to return, not confused about what ended, and not emotionally tied to what He has already removed. And this is how He clears space for the new responsibility, the new position, and the new path that could never exist while the old structure was still standing. Chosen one, understand this with maturity and spiritual clarity. The lookout Allah has placed you on is not a seat of revenge, superiority, or emotional payback, but a position of discernment, wisdom, and restraint, because Allah does not elevate His servant so they can look down on others with pride. He elevates them so they can see clearly what they could not see while they were inside the storm. And this is why, from this higher perspective, you are now recognizing patterns instead of personalities, intentions instead of words, and character instead of charm. Because discernment is the real gift of elevation, and Allah gives it only to those who endured harm without becoming harmful. And notice how you no longer feel the urge to expose, confront, or explain yourself. Because revenge seeks emotional relief, but discernment seeks protection. And Allah is training you to move forward without repeating the cycles that once wounded you, teaching you to observe without attachment, to remember without bitterness, and to distance yourself without hatred. Because power without self-control corrupts the soul, but elevation paired with taqwa produces leaders who do not misuse their position. And this is why Allah allowed you to suffer in silence before granting you this vantage point, so that when you finally see who was real and who was performative, who was loyal and who was opportunistic, you do not weaponize the knowledge, but use it to set boundaries, choose wisely, and walk forward with humility, knowing that Allah did not raise you to punish people, but to protect your future, preserve your heart, and ensure that the next chapter of your life is guided by wisdom rather than wounds. Chosen one, let this settle deeply into your heart and mind. They are speaking louder now, more aggressively, more emotionally, more desperately, not because they gained confidence, but because your silence has grown so dominant, so unshakable, and so deliberate that it has stripped them of every thread of control, influence, and relevance they once assumed they had over you, because silence rooted in truth is never emptiness. It is authority, it is strategy, and it is divine protection. And Allah trained you in restraint long before He revealed its full power, teaching you to hold your tongue while being misunderstood, to walk away while being provoked, to remain patient while others tried to provoke reactions, to trust His timing while others rushed to label you or rewrite your story, and to maintain composure even when the pressure of injustice felt unbearable, because every moment you refused to react, defend yourself, or explain your actions, you unknowingly removed the very fuel that kept their manipulation alive, because systems built on fear, control, gossip, and emotional hooks cannot survive without reaction, and the moment you stopped feeding them with anger, explanation, or validation, their influence began to starve, which is why their voices escalated, their narratives multiplied, their energy became desperate, and their agitation obvious to anyone with eyes to see, because people raise their volume when destiny moves without them, when influence exists beyond their reach, and when power no longer responds to their attempts at control. And your calm, your stillness, your silence revealed clearly that they no longer have access to your heart, your mind, your decisions, or your future. And Allah allowed this contrast intentionally, so it becomes clear to everyone, both seen and unseen, who stands firmly on truth and who survives only on noise. Because truth does not panic, truth does not rush, and truth never requires constant validation, while falsehood shouts, repeats, recruits others, manipulates perception, and spreads confusion in an endless attempt to feel real. And notice how your quiet consistency, your unshakable presence, and your refusal to participate in the drama unsettles them more than confrontation ever could, because confrontation engages them on their terms, while silence forces them to engage with themselves, to confront their motives, to reveal their insecurities, and to expose their own failures in ways they never intended. Because when you advance quietly, improve steadily, and rise deliberately without acknowledgement, explanation, or closure, you become an unmovable force whose existence alone unsettles the false, confuses the manipulative, and challenges the insecure. And silence in your case is not weakness, avoidance, or fear. It is spiritual discipline, emotional mastery, and complete reliance on Allah's justice. Because when a servant restrains their tongue while wronged, Allah elevates them in ways arguments, protests, or retaliation never could, turning patience into protection, restraint into reputation, and composure into unassailable authority. And now, those who once dismissed you, overlooked you, underestimated you, or even attempted to harm you, are forced to fill your silence with their own insecurity, speculation, and emotional unraveling. Because when you stop explaining yourself, people inevitably begin explaining themselves, revealing their envy, fear of irrelevance, discomfort with losing influence, hidden resentment, and weakness that only surfaces when confronted with the unshakable presence of truth. And Allah is using your silence as a mirror that reflects their character while simultaneously refining yours, teaching you that dominance is not loudness, that strength is not aggression, that authority is not visibility, and that power is not measured by the reactions of others, but by the ability to remain composed, steadfast, and focused while everything around you seems to crumble, while others panic, and while the world misunderstands your patience, because this is the divine lesson of elevation, to remain obedient while others rebel, to remain focused while others are distracted, to remain grounded while others unravel, and to act only when Allah directs, knowing that the timing of your response is more important than the immediacy of their provocation. And this is why you must never break this silence out of ego, impatience, or the desire to be understood, because Allah is completing something through your quietness, preparing you for a level where words are unnecessary, where presence alone carries weight, and where influence is undeniable. Because when your silence dominates, it is not you who is being ignored, it is them who are being outgrown. And the world cannot comprehend the power of a chosen one whose restraint has become their unseen weapon, whose composure is their unseen shield, and whose obedience has made them untouchable by human schemes. And Allah is making it unmistakably clear that the next chapter of your life, the next elevation of your destiny, and the next manifestation of your purpose will be led by wisdom instead of reaction, by outcomes instead of arguments, by divine backing instead of human approval, and by trust in Allah instead of seeking validation from the world, because the silent rise of the Chosen One is the loudest statement to the universe that obedience, patience, and trust in Allah always prevail, that truth cannot be undermined, and that what is destined for you will never be obstructed by noise, envy, or opposition. And when the world finally comprehends your quiet, they will not see weakness. They will see the unstoppable hand of Allah, guiding, protecting, and elevating a servant who has learned to let silence speak louder than all attempts at control, and to remain unwavering while everything else tries to shake them. Because this is the power, the discipline, and the authority of the Chosen One who has been trained by Allah to rise beyond reaction, beyond drama, and beyond the influence of those who cannot comprehend divine purpose. And this is why silence in your life now is not absence, it is dominance, it is mastery, it is authority, it is unseen victory, and it is the herald of everything that Allah has prepared for you in the next level of your destiny. Chosen One, understand this reality with profound clarity and spiritual awareness. When Allah allows your name to enter rooms, conversations, and circles you are not physically present in, It is never to inflate your ego, satisfy curiosity, or draw unnecessary attention. It is a precise divine mechanism meant to expose intentions, reveal hearts, and clarify the spiritual landscape around you, because names carry weight only when destiny is attached to them, and when Allah decrees that your story, your presence, and your essence are to be spoken about in places you have never stepped into. It is a sacred signal that the people surrounding you, those who interact with you, and even those observing from a distance, are now being tested and revealed by the subtle but unyielding hand of divine wisdom. And this exposure happens so naturally, so effortlessly, and so clearly, that it cannot be hidden, ignored, or redirected by human manipulation, because Allah allows conversations about you to travel ahead of you, not for spectacle but for discernment, so that everyone's true character surfaces without their conscious awareness, so that those who are sincere will speak with honor, humility, and respect even when you are absent, while those whose hearts are insecure, envious, or weak will distort, diminish, compete with, or misrepresent what they cannot comprehend. And each reaction, each whispered comment, and each subtle expression becomes a confession, a reflection of inner truth that cannot be masked. And Allah orchestrates this carefully, because He does not protect His chosen servants by keeping them in ignorance. He protects them by revealing truth at the precise moment when awareness will bring wisdom, clarity, and strategic alignment, and not confusion, regret, or misjudgment. And this is why you may later hear words that were said about you not to wound you, shame you, or draw your attention to gossip, but to free you from misplaced loyalty, prevent emotional entanglement with those who were never aligned with your purpose, and release you from the unnecessary burden of defending yourself against hearts that were never sincere, because understanding intentions before attachment is mercy, and clarity before trust is a divine shield. And this is why betrayal feels lighter when intentions are exposed, because it removes the element of surprise, transforms pain into insight, and teaches the soul that separation is not always loss, but often protection and preparation for what is greater. And notice how some people suddenly become overly supportive, flattering, or attentive when your name gains significance, while others grow distant, defensive, dismissive, or openly critical, because your rising presence forces everyone to confront the sincerity, loyalty, and integrity of their hearts. And those who once benefited from your quiet, unnoticed growth, from your restraint, or from your invisibility feel threatened, uncomfortable, and exposed when they realize you no longer fit into their narrative or depend on their consent, while those who are rooted in faith, grounded in sincerity, and aligned with divine wisdom recognize that Allah elevates whom He wills, and He does so without human consultation, without favoritism, and without partiality, revealing that true elevation comes with testing, exposure, and discernment. And this is why Allah allows your name to circulate before your arrival, so alliances are naturally tested, so envy and ill intent are revealed without accusation, and so loyalty and genuineness are proven without demand, because the truth spoken in your absence is often the clearest reflection of character, and Allah uses this process as a divine sifter, separating hearts that are solid from hearts that are superficial, trustworthy from opportunistic, and sincere from performative. Because not everyone who smiles, nods, or remains present around you carries pure intentions, and not everyone who stays silent or seemingly distant is harboring malice. Yet patterns repeat, and discernment grows when repetition exposes motives, allowing your soul to navigate the world with wisdom rather than reaction, awareness rather than confusion, and freedom rather than unnecessary attachment. And Allah gives you eyes to see, not to confront aggressively, but to walk forward with clear judgment, making space only for those whose presence aligns with your path and purpose. and elevation without discernment leads to repeated harm, unnecessary compromise, and emotional exhaustion. And Allah refuses to elevate you, only to witness you be hurt again by the same type of people, which is why your heart now feels lighter, less entangled, and more detached from those whose loyalty was conditional, whose support was performative, or whose presence depended on convenience rather than sincerity. And He is preparing you for relationships, partnerships, and connections that are rooted in truth, mutual respect, divine alignment, and spiritual compatibility, because every person who walks beside you next must do so with honesty, humility, and integrity. And every interaction must reflect not proximity but character, not convenience but sincerity, and not obligation but voluntary alignment with Allah's plan for your life. And when your name enters every room, it is not merely recognition, it is divine sorting, filtering, and positioning. As Allah exposes motives, clarifies loyalties, and removes those whose presence may have previously hindered your growth, teaching you that the exposure of intentions is never loss. It is protection, never loneliness. It is alignment, never isolation. It is preparation, and never punishment. It is divine orchestration, because what Allah clears from your path, He replaces with what is better, truer, and aligned with your destiny. And every conversation about you, every whisper, every speculation, every moment of recognition serves as a reflection of how far you have grown, how your obedience has manifested unseen, and how Allah's hand is moving invisibly to ensure that when you step fully into the next stage of your life, it is with clarity, security, and the kind of support that reflects the purity of intentions, because in the end, the world cannot define your path. The hearts and intentions of those who surround you cannot define your value, but Allah's plan, His justice, and His timing will always prevail. And when your name circulates, it is not about fame, ego, or attention. It is about preparing the world, revealing character, and aligning destiny, so that those who are meant to walk beside you do so with clean hearts, sincere intentions, and unwavering respect for the path Allah has written over your life. And this is the wisdom of becoming the talk even when you are absent. It is not exposure for vanity, it is exposure for discernment, protection, and divine preparation for the greatness that awaits you. Chosen one, let this truth settle deeply into your soul so it frees you from unnecessary weight. Their downfall is not your responsibility, not spiritually, not emotionally, and not morally, because Allah alone is the judge, the planner, and the executor of justice. And when people fall after opposing you, betraying you, using you, or wronging you, it is not because you wished harm upon them, spoke ill of them, or plotted against them, but because Allah never allows injustice, arrogance, or corruption to continue unchecked forever. And this is why you must never internalize guilt for outcomes Allah Himself orchestrated, because you were not appointed as executioner, avenger, or punisher. You were appointed as a servant who remained upright when tested, patient when provoked, and sincere when surrounded by deception. And Allah handles the rest, and understand this clearly. When someone collapses after mistreating you, it is not your rise that destroyed them. It is their own refusal to correct themselves when Allah gave them multiple chances, signs, and warnings. Because Allah always warns before He removes, advises before He exposes, and delays before He decrees. But when people ignore every opportunity to repent, reflect, and realign, Allah withdraws His protection, and what collapses afterward collapses by divine permission, not personal revenge. And this is why your conscience feels clean even when outcomes are severe, because your hands are clean, your tongue was restrained, and your intentions were guarded. And Allah does not burden a soul with the consequences of another's choices. And yet the enemy often tries to whisper guilt into your heart. making you question whether your silence caused their fall, whether your boundaries triggered their loss, or whether your growth exposed their weakness. But understand this: boundaries do not destroy people, truth does not ruin people, and growth does not harm people. Only entitlement does, only arrogance does, and only injustice does. And Allah does not ask the oppressed to apologize for surviving, nor does He ask the patient to feel shame when justice finally arrives. Because divine justice is not cruelty, it is correction, and it comes not to please you, but to restore balance in a world distorted by ego and abuse. And this is why you must resist the urge to rescue people from consequences Allah assigned to awaken them, because sometimes downfall is the last mercy Allah gives before complete loss, a final interruption meant to shake a soul awake, and interfering with that process out of misplaced compassion can actually delay someone's repentance, because mercy without wisdom becomes enablement. And Allah is teaching you that compassion does not mean carrying what Allah never assigned you to carry, and empathy does not mean absorbing guilt for crimes you did not commit. And notice how Allah allowed you to exit quietly before things fell apart, because He removes His chosen servants before collapse, so they are not emotionally entangled, blamed, or confused about their role. And this is why your heart feels heavy at times, not because you are responsible, but because you are human, compassionate, and reflective. Yet Allah is reminding you that feeling sadness does not mean accepting blame, and awareness does not mean ownership, and you must not allow people to rewrite history by making you the cause of their consequences, because accountability belongs to the one who made the choices, ignored the warnings, and dismissed the truth, not the one who stayed silent, obedient, and patient. And this lesson is critical, because as Allah elevates you further, more people will project their failures onto you, accuse you of changing, claim you abandoned them, or suggest your rise caused their fall. But remember this always: Allah elevates to honor, not to destroy. And if someone is destroyed by your obedience, it means they were standing on opposition to truth. And truth does not apologize for existing, and you must guard your heart from false responsibility, because carrying guilt Allah never placed on you will slow your movement, cloud your discernment, and burden your spirit. And Allah wants you light, clear, and focused for what comes next, not weighed down by the ruins of other people's decisions, because your role was to remain upright, not to save everyone, to obey Allah, not to manage outcomes, and to walk away when instructed, not to stay and bleed out of loyalty. And when Allah brings things down, He does so with precision, wisdom, and justice, far beyond human emotion. So release what is not yours, forgive without reconnecting, pray without re-entering harm, and move forward without dragging the past behind you, because their downfall is not your failure, not your cruelty, and not your burden. It is simply Allah concluding a chapter that could not continue, while preparing you for a future that requires a clear conscience, a steady heart, and full trust in His divine justice. Chosen one, understand this truth with complete clarity. When Allah allows your name, your presence, and your story to become the talk of the town, it is not an accident, it is not vanity, and it is not a reflection of ego. It is a divine signal that your next level is public, that your rise can no longer be hidden, and that Allah is preparing you for a responsibility that demands visibility, accountability, and the utmost spiritual maturity. Because elevation in secrecy is for preparation, but elevation in public is for deployment. And when people begin speaking about you in rooms you have never entered, when whispers turn into conversations, when speculation becomes acknowledgement, and when attention follows your movement, know that Allah is introducing you to a sphere where your actions, your intentions, and your character will be on display, not for judgment, but for purpose. Because the chosen one's next phase cannot unfold quietly. The world must see the signs of Allah's favor, the wisdom of His guidance, and the reality of His protection manifesting through you. And this is why you may feel eyes on you constantly, why some are inspired and others are unsettled, why the energy around you becomes intense, and why tension seems unavoidable. Because those who have never been able to perceive the divine plan in motion are now sensing it indirectly through their own hearts. And Allah allows this to reveal both truth and deceit. Truth becomes visible through sincerity, and deceit is exposed through reaction, because nothing remains hidden when the Chosen One steps into their public station. And this is why your rise will be accompanied by tests, scrutiny, and scrutiny-induced envy. Because Allah does not elevate for ease, but for preparation, refinement, and proof. And when people speak about you, it is often not about who you are, but about what they cannot understand, what they cannot control, and what they cannot predict. Because your obedience, your patience, your trust in Allah, and your alignment with His will create a spiritual resonance that those who are disconnected from divine guidance cannot bear quietly. And this is why being talked about is not a curse. It is a confirmation of your alignment with destiny, a sign that Allah is shifting you from preparation to manifestation, from potential to influence, and from private growth to public impact. And recognize that with public elevation comes responsibility. Every word, every action, every choice is now amplified, scrutinized, and mirrored, and you must conduct yourself with integrity, humility, and constant awareness that Allah is watching more than anyone else, because the Chosen One is not elevated to impress people, but to reflect divine wisdom, justice, and mercy. In a world that is still learning the difference between transient noise and eternal truth. And when attention comes, let it not inflate your ego, let it not provoke anger, let it not distract you from purpose, but let it remind you that Allah is calling you to leadership, stewardship, and example, because being talked about is never about vanity, it is about verification, because the visibility of the Chosen One is a test, a tool, and a blessing, and the reactions of others, whether they envy, admire, fear, or celebrate, serve to clarify who is aligned, who is genuine, and who is only present for convenience or comparison. And this is why patience becomes indispensable, because public elevation tests your heart more than private trials ever could, teaching you to remain unwavering when admiration becomes flattering, to stay humble when praise becomes loud, to remain grounded when attention turns overwhelming, and to move forward when opposition becomes visible, because when Allah makes your next level public, it is not for chaos, it is for calibration, purification, and divine positioning, and you must use this visibility wisely. Speak when necessary, act with intention, forgive without weakness, hold boundaries without anger, and continue your journey with focus, because every action now carries ripple effects. Every interaction becomes recorded, and every decision becomes a precedent, and the Chosen One understands that visibility is not a platform for ego, but a channel for purpose. And the higher you rise, the more responsibility Allah entrusts to you, and this is why you must remain vigilant, disciplined, and unwavering, because the next stage of your life will demand clarity of character, precision of intention, and depth of faith. And know this, above all, the fact that people are talking about you, noticing you, and watching you unfold is not a sign of vanity. It is divine preparation for deployment, a confirmation that Allah is elevating you to a position where your obedience, wisdom, and trust will influence not only your life, but the lives of many. And when handled correctly, this public phase will become a blessing for you and the Ummah, because the Chosen One's rise is never for personal glorification. It is a visible manifestation of Allah's plan, and the world being forced to witness it is proof that destiny has arrived, protection has been granted, and the next level is no longer hidden. It is here, public, undeniable, and fully ordained. Chosen One, take a deep breath And let this truth settle in your heart. Everything you have heard today is not random, and nothing is accidental. Allah has elevated you, protected you, and positioned you exactly where you need to be. And the fact that your name is moving, your presence is being felt, and your story is being spoken about is proof that destiny is catching up with obedience, that truth cannot be hidden, and that divine timing is perfect even when the world seems chaotic. Remember this: your rise, your protection, your clarity, and your influence are all signs of Allah's hand guiding you, shaping you, and preparing you for a future that only He can orchestrate. Those who doubted, betrayed, or underestimated, you will see the results of their choices. But your responsibility is not to react, it is to remain steadfast, patient, and aligned with your purpose. Because every step you take, every boundary you set, and every moment of silence you maintain is a testament to your spiritual strength, your obedience, and your readiness for the next level. So let them talk, let the old eras fall, let intentions be exposed, and let your next chapter unfold exactly as Allah has written. Because when the chosen one moves with patience, humility, and divine alignment, nothing in this world can stop what is destined, nothing can overshadow what is ordained, and nothing can shake the foundation Allah has placed beneath you. Stand firm, stay focused, trust the process, and know this above all: the world noticing you is not your rise. It is Allah's confirmation, and your next level is already unfolding. Walk into it with faith, walk into it with courage, and walk into it knowing that everything you have endured, everything you have observed, and everything you have survived was preparing you for this exact moment. The talk of the town is just the beginning. The true manifestation of your destiny is about to reveal itself, and it will leave no doubt that Allah's chosen ones cannot be stopped, cannot be diminished, and cannot be ignored.